For those that are listening, you're hearing two guys in franchise development, right? We get franchise dev, how to sell franchises, and there's franchisors that are wondering next up, okay, now how am I going to sell these? Do I do it in-house? Do I use these franchise sales organizations? You and I might have a similar perspective or totally different. I'm curious, Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, and we do both. So inside of Empower, we have an incredible alignment with one of the top franchise sales organizations out in the marketplace, Franchise Fastlane. They've done a phenomenal job in a number of our brands to help launch. I will tell you that it is a valid and successful way to launch a brand as long as a franchisor understands a couple of very key and important tenets of FSOs and outsourcing the sales process. So number one, franchise sales organizations, the ones with whom I've worked, the one thing that I've found is that it is absolutely, you're able to be aligned. FSOs want to be aligned. It's up to the franchisor to be and stay aligned with FSOs. And what do I mean by that? What do I mean by saying let's be aligned? There should be a degree of expectation setting. These are the kinds of concessions I'm willing to grant. Mm-hmm. This is the kind of franchise owner or candidate rather that I want to see in the pipeline. This is when I want to engage with candidates in the process. This is how much time I want to spend with a candidate before they come into my building in a confirmation or discovery day or decision day. We call it Empower Day. There are rules of engagement that I would highly encourage a franchise owner to enter into with that FSO. Most FSOs are going to be really interested in the period, and put them kind of between the bookends, right? The period of growth that is rapid, meaningful, and significant for a brand. Most FSOs are not interested in taking on the development role of a franchisor until that franchisor has franchise owners that have been operating successfully. That is what FSOs are able to lean on to help scale and grow and award franchises very, very rapidly. You and I have talked a little bit about it. There's three legs of the stool, mm-hmm. three main legs of the stool that you need from a development perspective. You have to have territories to award. You have to be able to point to strong unit level economics, and you have to have validation, right? You have to have franchise owners in the system that believe they're being cared for the right way and they're happy with the choice that they made. So when you think about an FSO, they utilize that strong unit level economic performance to penetrate the territories that are available. Once the territories start to get exhausted, that's typically when the FSOs fall, or that brand will fall outside of the sweet spot of the FSO. But between those bookends, the FSOs can be a great way to grow a brand, provided franchisors recognize, number one, much more material portion of the initial franchise fee is retained by the FSO for the work that they do. Again, back to your point, mm-hmm. If you're using franchise fees to keep the lights on, probably not the right strategy. So the material amount of that initial franchise fee is going to be kept by the FSO, number one. Number two, you got to be aligned on those rules of engagement and how we're going to work together to be able to scale. Most FSOs generate their income by selling franchises, right? Franchisors, if they're doing it the right way, they're generating their revenues and becoming positive from a cash flow perspective based on royalties. So you got to make sure that there's alignment on what the expectations are and govern the relationship accordingly.
Those are all great points, Scott. The perspective on alignment is no different whether you're employing a franchise sales organization or you are employing a remote franchise development person that's, 1,500 miles away and not in your office. Either way, they have to be in alignment, have to understand who's going to be acceptable, the culture, all those things. So if somebody is a franchisor that's thinking, all I got to do is hire an FSO and they're just going to sell franchises for me, and you think it's going to be hands off, you're making a huge mistake, because first of all, they're going to go off just what they think as opposed to you really making them part of your family. They really are an extension of your family.
They are. You nailed it. I mean, I couldn't have said it any better. You're exactly right. I think those that, when you're vetting an FSO, I think that there are lots of ways to ask questions to help understand, to help to get to that root understanding of we're partnered up. Like, this is a partnership. You're part of the team. You're part of the family, and we've got to stay aligned. Selling a franchise is just the first step. Remember that the team that's in-house, the in-house team, whether that's a founder and a plus one, or that's a full team of individuals, that in-house team, once that franchise agreement has been signed, now has to make sure that that candidate, now franchisee, is onboarded the right way, is able to get their facility identified and under project management the right way, if there's a facility, that the business is marketed the right way, that individuals train the right way, they open the right way, and they're coached the right way. If you don't have that team set up the right way and you add 80 franchise owners in 12 months, you're setting yourself up for some challenges, right?
Yeah.
And that becomes, that's sacrificing the long term for the short term. Because if you have attrition because you grew too fast on the front end and you couldn't support and get these franchise owners cared for and opened on the back end, that hurts the most important leg of the stool, which is validation, the way that people think about the franchisor and the support they're getting from the brand. And that has a meaningful, trickle down effect, Frank. You and I have both seen it.
Totally.
So again, staying aligned and saying, look, let's sit down and establish some goals and some expectations so that I can scale the operational side of my business while you scale the sales activity inside of my business.
Yeah.
Those have to be married up.
And that's where I think new franchisors make a mistake, where they think, if I'm in the business of franchising, that means I need to go sell franchises and expand as fast as possible. And where it is absolutely just devastating is if you say, okay, my franchise fee, let's say it's $50,000, and I'm going to bring the brokers on, $25,000 is going to the broker, $25,000 is going to the FSO, and they blow it up and they sell a whole bunch of franchises, but you can barely stay open and support them. They're going to be a statistic, right? They're not going to last. I'm bringing this up because I know there are founders out there that are listening to this that think that way, that they're saying, I'm going to just sell so many and I will start bringing in royalties, but it doesn't work that way. These franchises can't open fast enough to deliver enough return to you as the franchisor for you to be able to sustain it, right?
Right. It is. Well, I'll deal with that. That'll be a good problem to have. Like, I'll deal with that downstream.
Yes.
Right? It's like, I get that. I mean, I understand it. The difference here is that you've got individuals that are leaving careers. They're pulling out, leveraging their 401k. They're using debt, getting an SBA loan or angel investing to invest in your brand, right? This is a big responsibility. It's a huge responsibility. And so being planful about it, right? Using the discipline of developing a pro forma and understanding ratios to say, I'm going to build an organization such that I'm going to have one operations consultant for every 20 franchisees. That means if I sign up 40 next year, I need to hire someone else.
Right.
I need to be hiring that person in advance and getting them trained and aware of the brand and understanding of the culture and set them up for success. Like, it's about being planful. And it seems like, Frank, I think to me and to you, it seems kind of basic, but going back to some of the original discussions of that independent business owner, sometimes you're just going, right? It's day to day, it's week to week. You're going, you're driving, and it's easy at times to not sit back and say, whoa, let's be planful about this. Let's look at the next 12 months. Let's understand our ratios. Let's look at what we're planning for development and then track along to achieving that. If things start to blow up, you can start to make decisions around, man, people are really adopting this brand. We've got a lot of franchise candidate interest. What does that mean for us? Does it mean that we continue to scale? And that means I've got to go higher to stay in ratio, and I've got to get a bigger office building, and I've got to think about more people to run marketing for more franchise owners. Remember, ratios are not just tied to operations consultants in the field. They also tie to the marketing resources you need, the onboarding resources you need, the training resources you need. So again, being planful here is just incredibly important as folks start thinking about rapid growth. And that's something FSOs do bring to the table, is rapid growth, but you got to be ready for it.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its hosts do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.